right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Properly Paid, where I'm super excited to be able to introduce our guest today. His name is TRISTAN. The man is a 25-year-old multi-million-dollar business owner. Somebody that I admire and respect from a distance because I understand that he knows how the game needs to be played nowadays when it comes to building a personal brand, building your own businesses, how he should move, how he should operate. His character is fantastic. And if there's one word that I could use to characterize him from just the short time that I've known him is action. He's somebody that operates in the realm of action, not motion. He doesn't sit, he doesn't think too much, he just does things, which I'm a huge believer in that mindset, a huge believer in that type of lifestyle where don't think too much, just do what you know you're supposed to do, and you can't fail that way. If you're acting and you're moving and you're doing things, you're gonna have success. So I wanna take this time to ask Tristan some questions, learn about his backstory, and let you guys get into his mind and understand his story so you can see how somebody that was just like you growing up with probably the same struggles, the same story as you, was able to get to where he's at in life and where he's going to go to. And I know he's going to have tons of success in the coming years. So without further ado, TRISTAN DLABIK.
Yes, sir, dog. Let's go.
Man. So when I was thinking about the questions I want to ask you, I definitely wanted to open up with something that went further back than just when you got into the business, when you started making money, all that kind of stuff. Because I know the moment in my own mind where it clicked for me, I said, okay, I know who I want to be and I know who I'm going to be. Growing up, what was that moment for you when you decided, okay, I'm meant for more than just what the normal life that's been laid out for me is? I know that I can get out of the situation that I'm in. What for you was that moment where you said, okay, I know I'm going to be different?
It's a very phenomenal question. And before we even jump into everything, I want to shout out, and I was going to do it on my story, but today's just been, it's been a long day, you know what I mean? So I was going to shout out the fact that he took the time in the process of our initial introduction to bring me some cigars. And I just wanted to highlight that's very, people sleep on just, just hospitality, you know what I mean? So when you can over deliver on just like being a good person, being genuine, that doesn't necessarily need to be defined by gift giving. I personally I don't like even receiving gifts. I'm not good at receiving gifts, but it meant a lot to me. You know what I mean? So the cigars that you delivered to me that was a phenomenal gesture. So I appreciate you for that. Now, to jump back into answering your question, that moment for me of self-realization of me being meant for more. First off, there's probably two ways to answer that. I believe at a very young age, my parents started to instill into me greatness, and that I was meant for so much more. My mom never, ever spoke any type of negativity or limitation over my life. You could always be everything you ever dreamed of. And she often used to say, you're going to be a great speaker. You're going to change lives. You're going to speak in front of many people. You're going to be a preacher. And I never knew what she meant because I just like to argue and yell. But, we hear now. And my dad, you're going to be a warrior. You're going to be a killer. You're going to be a dominator. You're going to be a professional athlete, and you're going to be so special, and just speaking life into me. And maybe not always in the delivery that, your typical citizen would want today, but in the delivery that I needed. It was an aggressive, deliberate, intentional, beautiful process that these two combined. And there was fragments of time they weren't in my life. Both my parents went away, and in that process there was periods of time where they didn't have access to me, so they were able to do this with a small amount of time with having me, in a sense. You know what I mean? My mom pretty much had me most of my childhood. My dad went away for most of my childhood, and my mom went away for a small period, but they were able to still, regardless, make me and my sister into two very, very successful young adults.
So that's an interesting point, because I know that's not typical from parents. Not every parent's telling their children, you would hope this would be the case, but it's telling their children you're going to be special, you're going to be a preacher, you're going to be an athlete, these sorts of things. When you were growing up, did that impact you in a way where you felt it, or were you just thinking, oh, you did?
Everything that is said to us impacts us. Even the strongest individuals with the strongest wills, the strongest minds, we're all impacted. And you have to realize, because everything that you say to somebody will either influence them to learn something or to disregard something. You know what I mean? So, especially as a moldable mind as a child, the environment of a child determines the elevation of the adult. You know what I mean? So it's very, very, very crucial to protect our children's minds. And what I mean by that is not to coddle and cuddle excessively, but to guide them and show them and enable them that you can be an independent child, an independent adult, and you can do everything you set your mind to if you're willing to work for it. My household was always God first, work first, play later. God first, work first, play later.
Right.
You know?
And that's interesting because when I think about growing up, what was that moment for me? Where did I feel like, okay, I need to prove something to either myself or to my family that I could be who people didn't think I could be?
Yeah.
Which is my burning desire. My desire comes from the fact that I know growing up, people did not see me for who I really was. Yeah, they doubted me. Doubted my intellect, doubted my ability to become disciplined, to do something meaningful. Because growing up, I was, the way that I see my childhood was, I was more scapegoated.
Yeah. Being
the oldest son in the family that I was with 3 younger siblings, I'm expected to be the example for the rest of the kids, especially with 2 parents that are immigrants.
Yeah.
Very old school, old style kind of families.
What's the culture?
So my father was born in Italy.
Yes.
He was born so Italian, and my mother from Venezuela, born in Venezuela. She came to the U.S. in her 30s. And in those cultures, not only the firstborn male, but the firstborn child and male, you're looked at as, you have to be the example, you have to be the leader, you're also going to become the patriarch, the leader of the family.
Yeah.
And growing up, I was not, let's say, upholding that standard. And it was made known. And I was scapegoated as a child in terms of, I was basically pointed at and told that, we don't want them to be like you.
Yeah.
And other people outside of my house would say the same thing. Other parents would be upset if even their kids were hanging around me, as if I was just like a bad kid.
Yeah.
Right. And so that for me growing up those 10, 15 years when I was aware of that is what got me to the point now where it's an obsession, it's an addiction to continue to do things that they never thought I could do.
Yes.
And now everybody's a supporter, right?
Yes.
But that's such an interesting experience that you had, because I don't feel like I had that as a child.
Yeah.
For your parents to be building you up like that, it was actually quite the opposite for me.
Yes. Yeah, man.
That's interesting. So, your parents raised you that way, building you up, wanted you to be successful, knew you were going to be successful. At what point in your life did you feel like you actually start stepping into that role of who you were supposed to be?
As soon as I became consciously awake, you know what I mean? 8 years old, 9 years old, all these seeds were planted, and the nourishment that came externally and internally from my faith, from people that poured into me through the church and through friends and through enemies and opposition, everything influences the garden, right? We think we choose. We don't choose. Whenever you submerge into an environment of negativity, positivity, it affects you. Positively, negatively, it's affecting your garden. It's either growing weeds, or it's growing flowers, it's growing trees, or it's growing negativity. It's growing because there's feed and there's nourishment going into your garden. So as soon as you're consciously aware, and even subconsciously, when you're unaware, there's growth occurring in your garden. And all you can hope for as a human is that you become aware of every piece of your garden as soon as possible.
Right.
And so every day I find new areas in my garden I have to protect, and then I need to cultivate, I need to develop, I need to, prune, I need to pull out maybe something that's good, but I need to prune it, adjust it, and transplant it in another area, because that area, that soil is dead, no longer serves me. And the soil in life for me still represents environment. This group of people no longer serves me.
Correct.
That mindset no longer serves me. That vehicle no longer serves me. I have to transplant to here, to them, to that, in order for me to go to where I want to go. Because for you to elevate in life, most don't not elevate in life through a lack of information or even through a lack of application. It's typically, the limitations is always found in the environment, is because you want to go there, but you keep doing that. For you to get something you've never had, you've got to do something you've never done. And you've got to first, prior to that, you won't be motivated to create those actions without changing the environment, changing the garden. And so for me, every day is an awakening. Every day, like, you're like, when was the moment? Every day is the moment. Every day I wake up and have a new moment of like, man, you could do so much more. I just did Andy Elliott before this, and I'm thinking to myself, you're on the right track. It's what I've been telling. When I give my messages to my people, my sales force, and the groups that I coach, the message is never really for them. It's for me. It's for my pain. It's for my late nights and my early mornings of feeling like a failure, like I'm behind, like I'm not enough, I'm not made enough, I'm not doing enough, I'm not helping my mom and sister enough. All that pain inside of me, I'm creating a message to preach to myself and then delivering it to the world. And I'm embodying the actions I know required in order to elevate out of that hole that I wake up in of like, man, or go to bed in, and I'm like, man, you're so behind.
Correct.
You know what I mean? And people watching this right now, you feel behind. You feel broken. You feel lost. You feel like you're doing all this work and you're not getting the results that you want. It's just part of the process. Use that pain, create a message, apply the message to self, market it, deliver it to the world genuinely, and not overnight, but over time, you'll change the world. The message I came up with a year ago that my boy Zayda Wabi got inked into his soul was, look how far you've come. Imagine how far you can go. And I evolved that message to look how far God has brought you. And if he loves you, imagine how much further he wants to take you.
Right. And it's interesting you say that thing about the environment, because people will hear that and they don't actually internalize the message. And even if they do get to the point where they internalize that message, like you said, it's not because they don't have the information to do these things. It's that they never actually put that into action. They never actually change the garden. They never actually make the movement. People are, I see now, too paralyzed to do things because they have too much information. Paralysis by analysis. So they just never end up knowing what to even do. It's like,
I do that all the time on DoorDash.
Right, yeah. What do I pick? It's too many options.
Restaurants, DoorDash, I'm bad. Paralysis analysis happens to me with food.
Right. Yeah. It happens with anything. They've done studies where if you gave somebody an option in the grocery store between 100 different cans of food, they were more upset by having 100 different options because they couldn't decide what to eat, as opposed to just having 3 options 100%. To pick between the 3.
Yes.
We always think that we need more. In reality, the simpler you can keep things and the simpler, and that's why I like your message about, taking care of self first and making sure you have a message that's true to yourself. Is basically the simplest form of mindset you could develop. Because it's only you have to worry about. When you're worried about everybody else, of course your life becomes convoluted and complicated and you can't do anything.
How can someone teach me mastery without self-mastery? Right. And how can someone teach me mastery if they believe they are a self-master? I only respect and learn from individuals that are delivering a mastery message that acknowledge they have not mastered themselves, but they're in the pursuit of self-mastery. Right. Never have I ever told anybody I'm perfect. I always tell people I've got flaws. When we started working with Esteban, the first thing I told him was I'm flawed. I said, listen, I have a patience issue. I have an anger issue. Didn't I not tell you all this? Yeah. I told him, hey, listen, bro, you may leave me. Here's why. Because I'm the type, when I create a relationship, I like to give you my red flags first. Here's my red flags, dog. Right. I'm impatient. I want shit right now. I'm angry, and I'm getting better. I'll admit my flaws, but admitting my flaws isn't accepting my flaws. It's an admission, not an acceptance. I admit, and I'm working on it. But I want you to know up front. And so I think it's a combination of these things where people I'm not going to respect you if you don't admit flaws. Patrick David just I went to one of his events a week or 2 ago, and he said, stand up. If you believe you're a 10 out of 10 leader, if you believe you're a 10 out of 10 in this room, and he had said something prior to that 10, 20 minutes ago, like, some of you guys are too scared to raise your hands and get interactive and introduce yourself and who you are. There's 300 people in this room and the minimum was $5,000. And he was right. He convicted me. I was like, you know what? I'm not raising my hand. Didn't raise my hand. So this time, I stood up. I didn't stand up because I believed I was a 10 out of 10 leader, because he was tricking people. I knew what he was doing. Right. But I stood up. He's like, why do you believe you're a 10 out of 10 leader? And I took the mic and I said, Patrick, I don't believe I'm a 10 out of 10 leader. But I paid this money to come here and introduce myself and let you know that one day I'd love to have you on my podcast and build a genuine relationship with you. And he shook my hand. He did this for nobody else. He said, I respect your honesty and your courage. And it's moments like that people don't realize that's what separates the good from the great, is the greats will admit, and they'll find opportunities like that, and they'll stand up like, man, you know what, I was weak there, but no, I'm not going to push it off tomorrow. I'm going to do it now. 5 minutes later, I'm going to do it now. Right. So I stood up, even though the environment wasn't correct, the opportunity wasn't correct, and I said, I'm going to make my shot. Stood up, took my shot, and the shot was phenomenal. I planted that seed. He doesn't know yet, but he will. He will. So I think these are small keys and small tips of individuals when they're watching this and they're like, man, what's holding me back? Listen, stop calling yourself a master. You know, I see so many people, they'll get into sales, they'll get into the real world, and they'll have a good year, a good couple years, a good week, a good month, and they want to be a coach, a master. Wait, bro, you've mastered nothing.
Right. Until
you've gone through pain, I have little respect. I'll give you a little round of applause, but you have gone through nothing.
Right.
Okay, have you dealt with death? Has someone died close to you? Have you dealt with no money? You know what I mean? Have you been in a position where you have no money? Have you dealt with heartbreak? Has someone taken your heart and broken it to pieces that you loved and adored? Maybe it was a little bit your fault, a little bit their fault, but you were sick. You know what I'm talking about? You ever had a heartbreak,
I know exactly
bro?
what you're talking about.
Where you're throwing up and you can't eat and you're crying and like you're just sick, dog.
Yep.
Like, don't talk to me if you ain't had heartbreak, bankruptcy, and death.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You going through this little adversity right now, dog. You ain't a master yet. Go through that, and then you'll be able to master.
And there's two very important points that you made. Is the accepting of your flaws or being vocal about them is so important, because it's similar to how they say, addicts, you got to admit you have a problem before you can fix it.
Yes.
It's, if you wonder why you're not growing anymore, it's because at some point you decided that you did master it.
Yeah.
You were perfect. You were fantastic. So if you're perfect, what else is there to work on? But that's why you stopped growing.
What else is there to make?
What else is there to do? But you're never done growing. That's something that I noticed even for myself in leadership. I came into this business 3 years ago, and I had so much success so quickly that it did
dangerous.
It diluted. What's the correct word for it? It started masking my flaws to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And what I remember is what I was doing so fantastically at the beginning was I was all about personal development. I was reading. I was developing my leadership lit. I was caring about other people and their success. I was doing all these things. And at some point, because I had grown so quickly and had success so quickly, I stopped paying attention to the personal growth that needed to happen for myself for me to continue to elevate.
Yeah.
And I noticed that within a couple of months. And it was humbling, because you have to remember, like you said, this shit is not a year. This shit is not 2 years. This life is a marathon. And like you said with God has a plan for you. But that plan wasn't a 1, 2, 3 year plan of personal growth and then you stop.
Yeah.
And that's not how it works. And so it's so important to, like you said, be aware of your flaws and understand there's always things to work on. It's
100%.
super important. It is, because I know that happens to people. It happened to me even for a little bit.
Yeah.
Where I said, why did I stop growing the way I was growing? I noticed it because I got stuck at, $200,000, $250,000 a month.
Yeah.
And I was stuck there for like 6 months, a year. So what happened? What changed? So I didn't think I needed to grow anymore.
Yes.
That has to change.
1,000%.
Absolutely. And there was one other point that you had made that was great too that I want to touch on. With the personal development, but I forget it. But a question I do want to ask you is, so now that you've been in this industry for 6-7 years, so just so people know, you own a life insurance agency.
Yeah.
But bigger than that, you have a personal brand that you're developing outside of the agency. So talk to me a little bit about what made you understand, what made you decide that you wanted to build this brand for yourself that goes beyond what you just do or use as a vehicle to create wealth or create financial freedom for your family. What made you decide to do that?
I don't believe that I decided. I believe God decided it, and I mean that so humbly. You know what I mean? I don't believe. I don't even really feel like. I joke because sometimes I get passionate. You know what I mean? Like, there's this girl I'm talking to that I like, and like I try to explain the way my mind works, and I'm telling her, I'm like, listen, very humbly, I'm trying to explain to you, like I don't believe that. Not that I'm not a human, but like I don't associate with your average human on just a thinking level. You know what I mean? And so like when I see these individuals that are performing in front of millions of people on a motivational level or an inspirational level, on a coaching level, and I'm thinking to myself, I never think like, oh, they're just lucky. I always think to myself, eventually I will be in that position at a much greater level. You know what I mean? I feel like my calling is a world calling. And obviously that has to be rooted in confidence, and a piece of it's rooted in a healthy ego that I try to keep in balance. But I also, it's a complex internally that is from God, your God complex. And so that image, we're made in his image. And I believe if I'm made in God's image, am I not made to impact the world? Am I not made to impress the world? And also in that acknowledgement of impacting the world, then I also have to understand if I'm made in God's image, it goes back to the self-mastery of, then if I'm made in God's image, how should I treat God's son? I am God's son, you are God's son, we are children of the Lord. So it's like, if I'm not loving myself to the fullest extent, you measure somebody's self-love through their discipline and their habits, and then you just examine themselves mentally, physically, spiritually. Let me see you. Let me put everything in the mirror. Let me put your body in the mirror. Let me put your spirit in the mirror, your mind in the mirror, and let's reflect and analyze on how are you treating God's son and God's daughter. You know what I mean? And so all of those things kind of aligned with from a young age of when my mom was telling me, you're gonna speak to the world. And it wasn't her. I believe that was God speaking through her. Right. You know what I mean? And it's like, I've got an opportunity to do good with that or do evil with that. So, it's hard to pinpoint an exact moment of what transpired, what's happening. It's like, I'm just following with this pull on my soul that just, it's so far above your average operating human of like, I'm just gonna go, and there's nothing wrong with college and your 9 to 5, but like, just like, man, I want to do so much more. I'm not money motivated. I'm not even like excessively beauty motivated. Like it ain't just like, man, that's a beautiful girl. Like I need a soul, man. I need power. I need passion. I need all of these intense things that occur more on an internal basis to motivate and drive me. And when I can look someone in the eyes and recognize that pain, I think that's my love language, is like when I see that pain in your eyes and I want to help you, I want to bring joy to your soul, because maybe it's how I bring joy to my own soul, is I know like the pain that I struggle with, if I can bring you fulfillment, I know it'll bring me fulfillment. It all starts with that self-love and that vision. And the vision's always been to impact the world, because I'm not just a limited human being, I'm a world being.
Right, absolutely. And that's how you got to think if you're going to do anything special, because the average person is never going to think like that. Never going to think like that. And it's interesting you keep, bringing up God, and my relationship with God is a little bit different, I would say. For me, the way that I came close to God, because as growing up, Italian father, mother Catholic, my father was Catholic. Yeah, I grew up Catholic. What's that?
My best friend is Italian. We talked about it last night. He's Catholic.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? You go to Mass a couple times a year.
Yep. So, growing up, I was raised Catholic, and I resisted the masses. I resisted the faith. I resisted God as a child, because I was naturally a rebellious person. Yeah. And this is why I was looked at as a problem child, is because I was rebellious. I knew I wanted to do what I wanted to do. I knew when people were telling me to do things, I knew it was the wrong thing to do. Even as a child, I didn't understand, let's say, logically what I was trying to accomplish or what they were trying to tell me. But I just knew I couldn't take advice from, and not in a negative way, my parents, but negative advice from a financial standpoint, take their advice from a financial standpoint, take people's advice from a life standpoint, because they weren't doing the things that I wanted to do.
Yes.
And so the way that I got closer to God, I would say probably around 2 years ago is when I really, really, really came back to my faith.
Yes.
Was when...
What were you, 21?
23.
23?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and what had happened is I've always been super in tune with my mortality, in the sense that I'm hyper aware of my mortality.
Yeah.
And I take that very seriously, because what I see young people, especially because they think they have time, they want to pretend like they're never going to die.
Yeah.
And that's an incredibly dangerous way to live your life, because like you said, you'll wake up one day 40 or 50 and your life is gone. And at that point, you now have no motivation, no desire to even accomplish anything at that point in your life. And
hey, any 40 or 50 year olds out there, your life ain't gone, but you better get on it. You know what I mean? Because, logistically speaking, you probably got about 36 more years left. But
Exactly. Yeah, you can't think that way.
keep going, dog.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a gentleman I'm good friends with, 67 years old, just bought the coffee shop down the street that I'm good friends with because he's an entrepreneur. And what he said, I'm not retiring. Why would I retire? I can do so many things, but that's the mindset.
Yeah.
But the point I was making about the mortality is that's what brought me so close to God again, as I understood, number one, like you said, I'm his creation. So how could I possibly say that I'm tired? How could I possibly say I can't do this, I can't do that? I don't feel like doing that. I don't want to do that. That's a disrespect to the life that I was given.
Yes.
If I can't accomplish every single last thing that I decided I want to accomplish in my lifetime, that's a disrespect to God.
Amen.
For the life that he gave me.
Amen.
Because like my grandfather, like my grandparents, parents, thank God they're still here, but they all have died. My ancestors, my grandparents, everyone before that. Their lives are gone. They've lived their lives and they have been ended. I have life still. I still breathe every single day. It would be selfish for me not to use every single moment that I have to do something impactful and do something for the people around me.
Amen.
And I look at my life like that as a sacrifice. I think about this a lot because as a man, I think you come into yourself as a man once you understand that your life is a sacrifice to a degree for your family around you. I believe so. I believe that my life is a sacrifice for my mother, for my sister, for my younger brothers, for my father, sacrificing myself to pay them back for all the sacrifices that they've made for me.
Yes.
All the time they've spent raising me, the opportunities that they forewent to put up with us, picking me up at the police station in high school twice, putting my mom through the word that I put her through, late nights going out, doing the classic high school college shit, drinking, smoking weed, doing all that kind of stuff. And it's only right for me to pay them back by being as monumentally successful as possible. Mm-hmm. It would be a disrespect.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
Yes.
I see that a lot in you, is that you're very driven to fulfill your destiny that I know that you have for yourself, but also to make sure that you're providing for the people around you, your family who need it the most.
Yes.
I respect that. That's good.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah. I believe that people who are doing things for themselves are always liable to fail because they've only let themselves down. People who live for other people are more unlikely or will not fail because, they're doing it for your mother. You can't let your mother down.
Yeah.
How are you going to quit?
Yes.
So that's huge. So let me ask you this. Now where you're at right now in your life. So you have your goals in mind. We've talked about those a little bit off camera. What things are you doing on a daily basis to make sure you stay, not that you would get off track, but make sure that you keeping your eye on the prize, make sure you're continuing to move in the direction that you're moving? What do you do on a daily basis?
I just keep it simple, man. Love myself, mentally, physically, spiritually, financially, every day. You know what I mean? Love my family. Call my mom every night. Make sure my sister feels like a queen every day. Treat women with respect. That's just loving myself. And my mentor Simon, he put it this way. Young men, sometimes we get into this mental phase of like collecting, women's hearts and collecting women. And it's like, he really kind of put a perspective on me of it's God's daughters. You know what I mean? And so it's like, you think of your sister, you think of your mother. Just be respectful of all humans. You young women.
Exactly.
You don't gotta collect. I feel like, I don't know, I think a young man's heart breaks a lot worse than a young woman's heart. I don't know. I've had my heart broken. And I'm telling you this, it's not cool. You know what I mean? Like, I dream of a life with a wife life. You know what I mean? Like full monogamy, like to an extreme, not excessively controlling or obsessive, but obsessive. Like so obsessed with you, girl. Like I got nothing on my mind but you. I'm so obsessed with you. You never have to worry about anything. You know what I mean? Correct. Until death. You know what I mean? Until death. So even when the physical beauty wears off, just know that my soul burns for your soul. And I believe that carries into every aspect of your life. Like, can your soul burn for mental development? Can your soul burn for physical development, spiritual development, and truly seek the kingdom of God above all else? Put God first above all else, and everything else will be added unto thee, says the word of God. So, man, that's what I do every day. And I fall short. I have setbacks. I've messed up. There's so many beautiful people that I feel like I've brought pain to that I didn't mean to bring pain to you. I was in pain. I made a mistake. And you ever watch this, just know you're such a beautiful soul. I apologize for the pain I brought you, whether it was intentional at the time, unintentional. Just know that we're all growing. I don't know if I feel like we all deserve everyone's forgiveness, but I don't know. I'm just sharing this because we're all human beings, and like so many people are just put all this, just so much fake stuff out there. Like, I'm sorry, if I hurt you, I'm sorry.
No, for sure.
So that's how I live every day,
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm sitting here thinking about the answers that you're giving, and it's people are always looking for this magic spell, this shortcut, this cheat code. Well, how do I figure out life, or what's the secret? What do I got to do this, that? When in reality, like you said, the simpler you keep things, the more in tune you become with yourself and the life that you want to live.
Yeah.
If you can just come to terms with who you are as an individual and be honest with yourself, with what you need to become better at, your life becomes very clear what you need to do.
1,000%.
Very clear. And that moment, that's why I associate it with me getting closer to God, is once you do give your pain and your anxiety and your sorrows away to God, who can handle all, and cast your anxiety on Him. You feel this weight come off of your shoulders. And again, you stop worrying about everything that's going on around you. If everybody focuses on becoming the best version of themselves, focuses on becoming just as true to themselves as humanly possible, just by the ripple effect of everybody doing that, the whole world would be better.
1,000%.
But it's everybody's too worried about what the other person's doing.
1,000%.
Don't do that.
Yes.
Absolutely. So, I want to ask you one more question. Now, so you're talking about having monogamy, having a girl, having a family, those sorts of things. Children, right?
Yes.
How many children do you want to have? What's your perspective on a genetic legacy? How many, multiple, tons of kids, small family? Like, what do you want as a man as you grow older?
So remember what I told you my flaws are? Patience and anger. So.
Yeah.
I don't know how many kids I get. Did you see me with kids, Esteban? Shit.
I can't imagine, bro.
Not right. I need at least 5 more years of development for me to have a kid, and probably, you think, probably
Just
more.
thinking if you had one right now.
Yeah.
A young savage.
I'd be up. Hey, 4 a.m., dog. Get the hell up. Push-ups.
3-year-old.
Yeah.
Get out the crib, dog.
Absolutely. Hey, before we wrap up, will you throw a story of us up on the phone? Tag us.
Yeah.
That's a great question. So, I think a lot of, like, how many, is it 3?
So I have a younger sister and 2 younger brothers, correct?
So let me try to take a guess in regard to what you want. Do you want 3 kids?
More.
You want more? Okay, so I feel like if there was a study done, I feel like a lot of children, when they grow older, they want to emulate similar to the life that they had growing up. Whether it was good or bad, they want to emulate a similar structure because of familiarity.
Correct.
Familiarity just kind of breeds some type of comfortability. You know what I mean?
Comfort.
So ideally my mind goes to 2 because I had a little sister, and that was my household. But you fall in love, and it's the happy wife, happy life. You know what I mean? So it's like, and my wife wants to do 1, wants to do 9, wants to do 10. Like, okay, whatever you want to do. So it's like, as much as I'm a traditional man, I'm a servant. I love to serve. I love to give. My love language, if number 1 is, again, it really is just one thing, because I like to recognize pain. I like to look someone in the eyes, and just give me a minute. We could sit here in peace, and I look you into your eyes right now, and I can start to piece together. I might not be able to exactly pinpoint your pain, but it's very simple in this broken world. You know what I mean? It's very simple, because a lot of individuals, I feel if you break it down in 2 or 3 categories, there's a lack of appreciation. There was some type of heartbreak, some type of abuse. There's only 2-3 different areas, you know what I mean? Some type of self-talk where you had really bad self-talk. You hated yourself somewhere. And it's like, when I can click onto that and recognize it, I want to just bring joy to your life, just whoever you are. And then secondly, I just like to give. I want to serve, you know what I mean? So when I fall in love, I just want to serve, you know what I mean? I just imagine my wife as a queen. So it's like a traditional mindset, God's going to be the center of our household, but secondly is going to be my wife, you know what I mean? And that would be the second piece to that household, and simultaneously protecting, I'm a simp, a super simp, but I'm super dangerous if you put me in a position where I have to be.
Correct.
You know what I mean? I pity the individuals that put me in a position where it's not God's mercy, it's my mercy, because there's not much there if I were to be put in a position You know what I mean? Where it was like, I have to protect now.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
it's like,
I mean,
pray
that's
for
your
those
greatest
people.
duty as a man.
Exactly. So, you know, household wise, I really couldn't describe it much better than like God first, wife next, and the family, and then me. You know what I mean? We'll put this thing on my back.
Absolutely.
So,
Tristan, my man,
Yeah.
pleasure. I appreciate you
Yes.
jumping on, spending some time with us.
absolutely. We got a story up?
Oh yeah, I've been. What's your Instagram?
Okay, dope.
At Preombro.
One thing I wanted to add in there is a question I had. Did you know everyone is a murderer? Everyone murders.
Bro.
No, I didn't.
Everyone murders every single day. Every single day. You murdered today. I murdered today. You murdered today. Here's what you murdered. Every single day, every single moment, every single breath you take a decision and you murder two voices. You murder the voice of positivity or you murder the voice of negativity. There's two voices. And you feed one and you murder one. And that's what determines if you're going to have a great life. So you have to accept that you're a murderer and figure out, are you going to murder the loser inside of you and feed the winner? Or are you going to murder the winner when we get off this podcast and we all can go behind closed doors off the camera and do what we want to do? Are you going to murder disloyalty and feed loyalty? Or are you going to murder loyalty and feed disloyalty? Are you going to murder values and honesty, integrity? And we've all fed into the negativity and fed that, and that's led our lives for periods of time, whether it's a moment and some of us are just priest watching this and perfect, or it's years like I have, years of murdering the voice of good, the voice of truth, the voice of God, and feeding the voice of the mind, the body, the carnal spirit. And so I think once you start to realize you're a murderer and you have the power in your hands to murder evil and feed good, you're going to live such a rich life. Don't measure it monetarily. Don't measure it through Instagram. Measure it through your soul. And you can tell, you know, if people light up and smile around you, the right people, a lot of people make some losers smile. You don't want losers smiling. I want winners smiling. When I make winners smile and say, man, you're a good man, that's $1 million. Amen.
Absolutely, brother. Tristan, appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you, brother. This was fire.
Yeah, it's fire.
This was fire.
As fuck, dude.
Boom.
And that's that, baby. Good shit.
Girl, you're blowing me up.